I'll turn that down, please. Hey, yo. All right. It looks like we are live. I have no idea what's going on. So, hello, hello. Hold on, let me see. Hello, hello. Okay, mic looks like it's gone. All right. Mic check, mic check. What's up? This is Big Heck. Uh, Testing out my stream, seeing how this works out. Put on a couple videos, react to some from content, see what these theories are looking like. I saw a lot of interesting videos pop up today on my feed, and hopefully I could I was gonna watch these anyway, so hopefully I could put these on here and we can chat about it. If anybody shows up, if not, I'm just gonna react to the videos.
The third season has finally gained momentum,
All right.
and this season has started providing answers, more than I expected. By the end of the 10th episode, we were introduced to one of the main antagonists, the King in Yellow. An elderly man in a strange yellow outfit possesses claws and strength similar to those of the monsters, but freely roams the forest in broad daylight. Clearly, he's smarter than the monsters, and it's obvious he isn't one of them. He has emotions. His eyes are light black, and parts of his skin resemble the children of Anku. Dark veins, similar spots on his face, and black teeth. He appeared in Miranda's visions even before she ended up in FROMville. We've seen him in drawings stored in the basement of Henry's house. Incidentally, there's a portrait that will appear in the 4th season, but it differs from what we've already been shown. Based on Julie's reaction, one thing is clear. In her previous time travels, she never encountered the King in Yellow. During a conversation with Jim, it becomes evident that this man was the one speaking to him over the radio. He warned Jim not to dig the pit, but Jim didn't listen. Plus, his remark during the dialogue, "Any knowledge comes at a price," is noteworthy. I believe this entity ranks higher than an ordinary monster, and he's the one controlling the cycles of repetition. If something deviates from his intended path, he is compelled to intervene. The woman in the kimono and all the monsters follow his orders. He is the one restraining Martin. I hope you understand that Martin is not an ordinary person either. It's impossible to survive.
All right. So, homie, Gaze for you. He has great theories. I've seen a few of his videos. I really dig his thought process when it comes to this stuff. I've heard a ton of these Man in Yellow. That's the big mystery that everybody's trying to figure out, and that's probably what most of these videos are going to be about. Um, and it's all interesting. I've heard everything from the crazy ones to the more did you know you have all types of theories because anything can go given what we have going on in the TV show and what has happened in the TV show. Just it's just a bunch of randomness that just happens and nobody knows anything. Uh, Best we can do is take our best guesses, right? Um, but yeah, let's go.
Survive so long without food or water. Moreover, he's neither a ghost nor a trapped soul because all separated individuals have cloudy eyes, except for him. The man in yellow is an obvious rival to the boy in white. One seeks to help and break the cycle of repetition, while the other, on the contrary, ensures its continuation. I spent a long time trying to figure out why he specifically wears a yellow suit. I read tons of information about the periods when yellow suits were popular and found only one era, before 1935. Yellow suits were worn by all presenters and actors in films. Back then, cinema was only black and white, and yellow was a necessity. It turned white on screen. That's why all the TV show hosts of that time strictly.
Now that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing that he dug up. It's interesting that it was black and white, so you wouldn't see the yellow, but they were yellow because it appeared white. It's actually pretty interesting.
Wore yellow. Perhaps our newcomer also sees his show called From. Cameras are installed everywhere. Someone is watching the participants, and they're placing their bets. Anything is possible, but I personally like the second theory more. Naturally, I wasn't the only one who thought the man in yellow might be Hastur, one of the deities from the Cthulhu mythos created by writer Howard Lovecraft and his followers. This entity fits the descriptions perfectly, and there's nothing similar to it in other books or myths. I found some parallels between the stories in the books and the series, so let's delve into the King in Yellow. There's plenty to unpack here. Hastur is first mentioned in the works of Ambrose Bierce, but he was developed in greater detail by Chambers and Lovecraft. I started searching for answers in their works and, unsurprisingly, found many similarities with the series. Let me start with the most fascinating aspect, the city of Carcosa. This is a place from which there's no escape, a city of ruins where the line between reality and illusion blurs.
All right, so I've heard some of the homies from the From chats and the Discords talk about the Man in Yellow and H.P. Lovecraft and Carcosa and all this, all this stuff. It's all fascinating. Definitely there's some similarities, and I did hear about them, and hopefully this gentleman can bring more of them to the forefront.
Anyone who ends up in this place becomes a prisoner of their own fears. The city's main purpose is mental destruction, driving people to a state of complete madness. When this happens, the victim is unable to distinguish reality from a nightmare. We saw this with Boyd's wife, Abby. She believed that by killing everyone, she would save them. To her, it was just a dream, and she thought everyone simply needed to wake up. The city of Carcosa's suppressive power acts on people like a kind of infection, leading to the destruction of individuals or even society as a whole. The city as a character. The location becomes an active participant in the events, not just a backdrop. Additionally, near the city are the towers and Lake Hallie. There isn't just one tower, though the exact number is unspecified. However, there's an interesting detail. The structures in Carcosa serve as a bridge between the city and the real world. We saw this in the second season when Tabitha successfully managed to leave the town's territory and return to the real world. Near the city of Carcosa lies Lake Hallie. It's located on the same side as the tower. And here's where it gets really interesting. The sun in the city always rises on the opposite side of the tower, while at night, the moon always appears on the tower's side. You might think this is a minor detail, but I don't see it that way. In the Peach Truck, there's a map created by Miranda, but there's also a small drawing stored there, which could also be considered a primitive map. It shows a lighthouse and a lake, both within a circle. I believe this represents the entire territory of this horrifying place. There's also the sun and the moon depicted, positioned just like in Chambers' works.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, see, this is why I don't make theory videos. Like, I don't think this deep. Like, this is all really interesting stuff. Like, that's why I like watching these videos and checking it out because it's just, um, because you see a lot like people have really good analytical skills and they know all the good stuff. I like to learn the good stuff.
The moon near the lighthouse and the sun on the opposite side. This is the same arrangement we see on the talismans. Additionally, the larger map contains notes tracking the movement of the sun and moon. So far, none of the show's characters have tried observing the sky, but it seems like this must be important. In truth, descriptions of Hastur in the books are very vague and poorly interpreted. For example, in the book The Shepherd of Haita, there are the following lines. Above Leng, where rugged peaks arise, to storm the heavens, distant, cold, and high, when night descends, a crimson glow takes flight, instilling dread in those who dwell nearby. A legend speaks of one forsaken tower, where, lost in grief, a lonely watcher broods, through chaos whispers endless truths and power, the last of ancients, foe to all that's good, his face concealed beneath a yellow mask, its silken folds obscure, yet hint at lines. So strange they haunt and daunt the ones who ask, for tales of him endure through endless time. They warn of one who dared the cursed domain, and never found the way to life again. Ambrose Bierce described Hastur as living in a lighthouse, while Howard Lovecraft later referred to it as a black tower. So, where the truth lies is unclear. The King in Yellow is a very enigmatic character. He cannot travel between worlds and locations on his own. He can only be summoned by reading the first act of the book about Hastur. It is believed that the second part of the book drives the reader insane, opening the doors to Carcosa. But entering the city itself without an invitation is impossible. In Ambrose Bierce's early works, the King in Yellow possesses two artifacts. The first is a talisman with the yellow sign. It's often depicted as a small object carved from stone, bearing the impressions of a mysterious symbol. This strongly resembles the stone talismans from the series, which repel monsters. Hastur uses the stone artifact to summon people to the dark city of Carcosa. There is no other purpose for the talisman. The second artifact is a torch. It creates a pathway to Carcosa or other forbidden worlds, breaking the
All right, I know where he's headed with this torch, right? That's the item that that Boyd got from the what is it, the Martin lair that and he was able to find his way back into the lair in season two with the torch. That's pretty cool. I don't get like the talismans. I'm not really seeing the parallels in terms of their usage, but I don't know. Maybe we learn more about the talismans and learn that it's not just about warding off uh, the monsters.
boundaries of reality. This is reminiscent of Boyd's journey when he was able to return to Martin after taking the torch in hand. Boyd also used the same torch to destroy the box. In Lovecraft's books, Hastur is mentioned only twice. In the stories, The Whisperer in Darkness and The Haunter of the Dark. But there was another American writer who continued Hastur's story, August Derleth. This author added a lot of his own ideas to Hastur's lore, but the most mysterious one is the power of the Madness Aura, controlled by the symbol of madness. This symbol also appeared in the series. Jade drew it in his journal, and here it is. It was seen in Victor's drawings and in many other places. Beyond this, I didn't notice any obvious parallels between the King in Yellow and the series. That's because I've only read part of the books about this entity. However, I'm sure there are people among you who are more familiar with the works of Lovecraft and Bierce. If it's
Man, I like that madness symbol. It's pretty cool. Um, so it seems like he's not all that um, into the like he's not that tapped into the lore. I know there were a few other people that were super tapped into the lore that I've spoken to in the discords with like Jeremy, Ice and Fire, PM. But yeah, there's a lot of cool parallels between uh, the faster man in yellow and the man in the yellow suit from.
not too much trouble, please share in the comments what you know about Hastur, especially anything that overlaps with the series From. I hope you understand that the King in Yellow doesn't actually exist in the series. This story strongly resembles the one about Dr. Mabuse, and you probably already know my theory about Mabuse. It became very popular and is being discussed across all platforms, including various websites and forums. I'm thrilled that you liked it so much, but I'm less happy that many creators of other YouTube channels fail to credit the original source of the theory. The King in Yellow.
Oh, all right, Gaze, for you, he wants that smoke. He calling y'all out. He said that everybody ran with the abuse theory like it was theirs, but he was the first one to put it out. I mean, he was the first person I saw put it out. I don't know who gets credit for what, but he is the first person that I saw put out that abuse stuff. I personally think abuse is referential, and it's just like an ode to one of the inspirations, but it's still. I mean, you've seen the name in the show. You've seen a painting of abuse in the show, and Mr. Gaze for you, he's flexing there.
Like Mabuse, is unlikely to appear in the series. We're being deliberately given false hints to mislead us. But this time, the similarities are too numerous, and I don't even know how the series will manage to steer away from them, although they figured out a way around the tarot cards, so I'm sure they'll come up with something this time as well. And I think they've already come up with something. I hope the creators of the series had a plan from the very beginning. You've probably all noticed by now how strangely the monsters are dressed. There's a cowboy, a bride, a baseball player, a cheerleader, and Smiley. There must be some sort of pattern or reason behind their outfits. Plus, some monsters always appear in pairs. The cowboy is always with his lady, and during the Smiley ritual, they were also arranged in a specific order, male and female, all standing in pairs. Randall on the bus told Boyd that the monsters have their own habits, and one pair always sits by the pool. Throughout the series, we've been shown playing cards, mostly from a starter deck.
I like that he points those things out about the monsters. Um, there's somebody. I remember the Discord there being theory about old maid cards and how a lot of the character, a lot of monsters represent the old maid um, set, which was pretty cool. I thought there was a lot of similarities there. Uh, yeah, the monsters walking around in pairs and it being man and woman. I'm assuming it's just refers to them being the parent, the mother and the father, whatever, the Ankuic.
Deck. When Tabitha entered the real world and visited Victor's father, Henry, he showed her the children's room. On the shelf, there were two games. One was a card game called Old Maid, and the other was a board game called Tiddlywinks. Unfortunately, I didn't notice this myself. It was pointed out by a very observant Reddit user, so I'm letting you know it's not my original discovery, but I'm going to develop this theory further. Now, the game Old Maid dates back to the 1930s. The deck of cards has changed over time, but that's not the important part. The rules are simple. Each player must exchange cards until they've matched all the pairs, man and woman. There are 12 possible moves, and we know there are 12 notes in an octave. But the most mysterious part is the illustrations on the cards. They include all our monsters: the milkman, the cheerleader, the cowboy, the bride, the ballerina, the gentleman, the nurse, the maid, and even a red-haired guy named Harry, who looks strange. This can't possibly be a coincidence. It turns out that Victor is the reason for the monsters' appearances. He imagined them this way. Most likely, all children have the ability to influence this town with their imagination.
Now, do we think that Victor actually created these monsters with, well, at least the way they look with his imagination? That's interesting. They said that the monsters were the original parents. I don't know if they changed their looks or I don't know. It's an interesting concept because one would assume that these people would be the same. The monsters would be the same people from whenever the original massacre happened, right? The original sacrifice happened, um, and not from when Victor joined the town. But it is a lot of stuff that does pop up seem to be from a child's imagination, and also they're dressed in outfits that are similar to what is Victor's time period.
Time ago, the children of Anku created the tree. But what if every child is capable of bringing something new, something of their own, into existence? And there aren't many children in FROMville. Right now, we only have Ethan. This could explain all the oddities in the town. There's a pool and a motel sign, but no actual motel. There's electricity in the houses, but no wires or power sources. Children know that flipping a switch turns on the light, but they have no idea how it works. It's just there. So it's possible that the entire town of FROMville operates like a child's imagination. You might say this is just another coincidence or an insignificant detail, but you'd be wrong. Every small detail matters in this series. Here's a simple
I don't know if every small detail matters in this series. I feel like we've fallen victim to paying close attention to a bunch of details and coming up with theories off of small details that we thought you know, were relevant and ended up being nothing burgers, really. That's why some people have been frustrated thinking that the writers are winging it or whatever. I say let them cook, but uh, I don't know if every small detail matters, or you know, but there are small details that do matter, right?
example. When Fatima found out she was pregnant in the second season, a pendant appeared on her neck. At the time, I didn't pay much attention to it, but it closely resembles Rosemary's pendant. If you've seen Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, 1968, you know that poor Rosemary became a pawn in a ritual. She was given a pendant by satanic cultists, and she was meant to bear the devil's child. During her pregnancy, she experienced terrible pains, couldn't eat normal food, and found raw liver far more appetizing than fresh vegetables. Rosemary slowly descended into madness, and her loved ones didn't believe her. She became terrified of everything, and they made her out to be insane. But in the end, when the time came for her to give birth, the child was taken from her. This mirrors Fatima's story almost exactly. So every detail in the series carries meaning and offers clues.
That's very fascinating, and I think that's more referential stuff and like more odes to previous series and movies and stuff like that that they like to do. And even though her story is very similar to to Rosemary, I mean, I wouldn't say they're biting their style or whatever, but they're trying to show them love.
Pendant wasn't just a coincidence. Considering the new information about the endless cycles of rebirth, I think it's worth rewatching all the seasons. Surely there are even more crucial details that piece together the puzzle. Think back to Ethan's words in the second episode. The boy dreamed of a lake of tears. Elgin also dreamed of a lake. Abby recalled dreams from her childhood, dreams where she saw this evil place. Just like Tabitha, everyone who ends up in FROMville seems to be connected to this place in some way. And the theme of boats keeps recurring in nearly every season, whether it's an image, a toy, or drawings in the cave. Yet in the photo of Boyd's house, there's no boat at all. The Lake of Tears might be the way out of FROMville. I believe we, the fans of this project, need to share our thoughts and discoveries more often. It might help solve.
Boom. We need to share it more often. Yes, let's do that. Let's be like what we expect from the townspeople, right? Keep sharing. That reminds me of the community, you know.
Of the puzzle. I've also decided to share what I think is a very strange discovery. It's connected to Clara. This fascinating, mysterious woman has been on my mind for a while. Clara is always where she shouldn't be. What was she doing on the roof? How did she climb so high with her less than athletic physique? Clara's presence often seems significant. Her appearances are followed by visions. She skipped the meeting, yet somehow knows what was discussed.
Bro is sus of Clara. Clara is new number one sus. You know, first it was I mean, Tilly was suspect number one. Well, no, the original suspect was Donna, right? Then now Tilly was like, okay, she's being super nosy. Now we have our third sus character, and she is. I really can't put my fingers on the pulse there. Like, she is very like she doesn't do anything really, but she's around. So I understand the suspicion.
At that meeting, people like Clara were the least suspected of being suspicious. But someone has to be the plant. And here's the most intriguing part. What is Clara doing in the drawings inside the truck? The drawing.
Wait, does somebody have to really be the plant? Like, I don't think we need a plant. Like, do they need do the monsters need a plant? Does the man in the yellow suit need a plant? It seems like they have all the power right now. Do they need an insider? I don't know, but I do agree that she is sus.
Drawings depict all the residents from 1978, the cycle when Victor was a child, and Clara is right there with them. I can't fully make sense of or explain this yet, but that's
Again, is that really Clara? She does kind of look like her, but is it like I don't know.
okay, considering none of us have the full picture. We can only speculate and build new theories. I'll be waiting for your theories and thoughts in the comments.
All right, so that was dope video. I like his theories. He always points out very interesting stuff. Go check out Gaze for You. Check out his other videos. He had a video from a couple days ago, which I thought was really good too. Um, Definitely go check out his channel. I'm gonna check out another Man in Yellow, Boy in White theory. This is part one from Julie B Deep Dives, and she is a W creator. Go check out her channel. Go like and subscribe. Show her love. That's the homie. So this is 33 minutes. Uh, I've been wanting to see this today, so we're gonna check it out.
Hey, Fromaholics, it's Julie B. Deep Dives, and this is part one of a special deep dive into my theories on the Man in Yellow and the Boy in White, two entities in From that are shrouded in mystery and seem to be central to the overall story, both of whom have been the subject of feverish debate and discussion. The Man in Yellow is a brand new entity just introduced in Season 3, although he already sent the fan base into a frenzy of speculation after he appeared in one of Miranda's paintings in Season 3, Episode 2. And although the Boy in White was first introduced to us way back in
All right, yeah, let's comment on the frenzy of speculation, right? Remember, when people first saw this painting, they see that smudge on the right side of his face. They thought that was the same scar as our friend Randall, right? And everybody was like, "Oh, Randall is the Man in Yellow." Why is Randall in this painting with all that red around him in the yellow suit? Um, then they start seeing like, and you see there's a bunch of splatter marks all over there. Like you see the right hand side over there. There's all types of black splatter marks. That could easily be a splatter mark. Just like on his left cheek, people were talking about that's a birthmark. Looks like a splatter mark to me. I don't think. I mean, the dude that actually plays the Man in Yellow, when we actually finally saw the Man in Yellow, he didn't have a scar on his face, right?
Season 1, he is still cloaked in mystery as well, as fans continue to debate whether he is a force for good, evil, or something more ambiguous in between. He also appears in one of Miranda's paintings, which has been in the opening credits since the first episode of the series. And in one of the first scenes of the series premiere, the game of chess was introduced as a theme, and I believe that is a clue strongly implying that there is a battle going on between these two opposing forces who are using the characters for specific purposes.
Yeah, that's very astute.
That doesn't mean it's purely for sport. The way I see it, one side is bringing characters to FROMville with the intent of helping the others trapped there and trying to break the cycle of violence. The other side is bringing people in specifically to use their individual traits to manipulate them into serving a harmful purpose, wanting to keep this cycle going and feeding on everyone's fear and suffering.
Now, a lot of people are still sus of the boy in white, right? Like, is he really helping, or does he have his own reasoning? Is he pulling an okey doke? Um, Julie thinks that boy in white is obviously the good side, and he's trying to help, while man in yellow is trying to keep everybody there and make them suffer, right? I like it as a good idea.
After the conclusion of Season 3, I believe that our two opposing forces in this metaphorical chess game are the boy in white, the entity trying to help, and the man in yellow, the entity trying to harm. It's possible that they are both working under higher entities, but for now, these are the main figures that we have to work with.
Hmm.
So I'm going to dissect everything we know about both of these characters and give you my theories on the nature of these shadowy figures and their purpose in the overall scheme of things, starting with the man in yellow in this video. So without further ado, let's get into it. The man in the yellow suit is the official name credited to the man in yellow, as we call him. When we were first introduced to the man in yellow, it was purely through one of Miranda's paintings in Season 3, Episode 2. While there were many intriguing paintings in that episode, that one in particular electrified the fandom as we wondered who this man was with the sinister face, yellow suit, and red glowing aura. The red aura clearly seems to be a hint that he's evil, apart from the obviously sinister eyes. Then at the end of the Season 3 finale, we finally got to see the man in yellow in the flesh. And what led to this moment? Jim figured out that the numbers in the bottle trees translated to music notes. Jade played the song, and Jade and Tabitha experienced the revelation that they had been reincarnated many times over.
Revelations. That was the name for the final two episodes, right? Part one and part two.
Overwhelmed and confused, Jim went to the RV to be alone, and a future version of Julie ran to him and begged him to come with her to town, saying, "I think this is where it happens." But Jim, being Jim, didn't listen to her and stayed.
Shade at
The
Jim.
man in yellow sauntered over, saying, "That was a hell of a song. That Jade sure can play." This implies that the song somehow summoned or released him from somewhere. But really, it was the revelation that came from this song. That's
Yeah, I agree with her. I don't think this song was like some kind of summoning song. Uh, I think once they figured it out and they came to that, they discovered that memory, and uh, the children came out. It really triggered him. I think he's been hanging around, well, not minding his own business because he's been trolling, but he's been not taking matters into his own hands, kind of just letting things happen. And now he's decided, oh, I'm going to step out and up my presence because they have made it too far.
what I think summoned the man in yellow. Because he went on to say, "This didn't have to happen, you know. I tried to warn you. Knowledge comes at a cost." So it was that revelation, that knowledge of Jade and Tabitha's origins, that was what summoned the man in yellow. And this is the cost of that newfound knowledge. He killed Jim as a result.
Poor Jim.
And the point
R.I.P.
of that is to probably cloud Tabitha's mind with so much grief and guilt that she will be distracted from her quest to save the children and end the cycle. For more on Jim,
Yeah, there was a lot of questions about why Jim of all people and why specifically Jim, why not Tabitha or Jade, right? Because they are the participants. Jim is kind of like a, um, it's weird to blame him, right? I mean, he did answer the question of the number 12 and the 12 notes, but he hasn't been, he kind of blamed him for the digging. He never encouraged her to dig, so um, it's interesting, right? And it makes sense that he would kill him just to hopefully distract Tabitha or maybe, you know, make her so, you know, make her sad about it, and make her go back to forgetting or sidetrack her and maybe she ends up failing because she's an emotional mess, right?
Jim's fate and the time-traveling future Julie, check out my video called Jim is Norman, Can Julie Save Him? Also, up to this
Check
point
out
in the
that video.
show, it's possible that the man in yellow might not have had a corporeal form and couldn't come into the physical world. So he had to use voices, like the voice on the radio, to play mind games, use the monsters to interact with and attack people, or manifest himself via the cicada entity. The man in yellow appeared with gray hair here instead of brown as the painting had depicted, and with his suit looking dirtier here. Director Jack Bender painted it before casting Doug Hughes as the man in yellow, but the change in his appearance can also be attributed to the same thing that the boy in white's older look was. Everything has been changing here, along with the season turning to winter.
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? Like people keep pointing out like he looks younger in the painting and I you know, I guess he does, but it's kind of um it's kind of hard to pinpoint anything that like make anything of that. I don't know. Does he age? I don't think so. If he's from the original town, I mean, I don't I don't get why he would age. But then the boy in white is aging. I don't know if that's the similar concept that because they're getting so far or there's some kind of timeline shift or something that he's starting to age and the boy in white starting to age when they shouldn't be. Um, it's interesting.
Clearly, this character is evil and essentially revealed himself to be the voice on the radio that talked to Jim in the season 1 finale cliffhanger. In a callback line to "Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim," this time he said, "Your wife shouldn't have dug that hole, Jim." And Doug Hughes, who played the man in yellow, confirmed definitively in recent interviews that his character was the source of the voice on the radio,
Hmm.
and he did his best to imitate the person whose voice they used at the time. So the man in yellow could be omniscient, meaning he would have the ability to see and hear everything going on. As the voice on the radio knew, Tabitha was digging the hole in the basement. But now that time travel has been introduced to the show, it's possible that he's not really an omniscient being with a godlike ability to see and hear what everyone is doing and saying. Rather, he could have come from the future or seen the
I don't agree with him being a future being, and I don't think he's. It's hard for me to assume that anybody else other than Julie can time travel, even though it's been introduced that there's some kind of form of time travel. I'm not a firm believer of that. I think he is omniscient and knows things, at least when it comes to what happens in certain places. Maybe he has some kind of surveillance. I don't know. Kind of like in Silo with the surveillance cameras being behind the mirror, but there's a reason why he knows a lot, and I don't. I, I really don't want it to be that he's traveling back in time when he's supposed to be like the OG from the OG town, from the OG sacrifice. At least in my head, he's supposed to be. But that's the way the show. The possibilities are endless, right?
The future because he's been there, and therefore he knew when Tabitha would be digging the hole. Though he seems human at first glance, his eyes appear demonic and he has claws that enabled him to rip open Jim's throat with his bare hands. He also had unnatural, superhuman strength that he employed to grab Jim by the neck and fling him against the RV, despite his elderly state and thin frame.
Yeah,
He
Unc
might
was
even have
definitely
other
strong.
abilities that we have yet to see as well. This man in yellow could have been the ringleader of the child sacrifice in the origin story, and
That's what I think.
perhaps he was turned into a different type of monster than the others, as he can clearly come out in the daytime, and we haven't seen him transform from a human appearance. Or he could have been the entity that promised the people immortality in return for the child sacrifice. In a recent
I think that's one and the same. I don't know, or maybe no, it's not one and the same. But I think yeah, both of those are possibilities. I'm at this point, I'm thinking he might just be the devil, you know, like some kind of form of the devil. I don't, um, but it's good to um, consider both, right? Like, was he one of the parents? Was he like the alpha, like the first sacrifice? Maybe Boy and White was his son or something. I don't know, but
recent interview with What is Fromcast, Doug Hughes, who plays the man in yellow, said that clearly the man in yellow is, quote, upper management, unquote, at the very least, since he can casually walk around in the daytime, unlike the nightmare creatures. He also said that his character will be on, quote, fairly regularly, quote, unquote, through season 4.
fairly regularly.
Similarly, in an interview with Tony Teflon, when commenting on how the man in yellow's clothes are filthy while the monster's clothes are pristine, he jokingly said, quote, well, it's management and it's a rough life there, unquote.
Another
While the
management
actor
reference.
insists
He also said that they like it was a nice looking fresh yellow suit when you first saw it, and then they went through and damaged it and like stomped on it, ran over it, and made it look all raggedy on purpose. I know he seemed kind of like he was offended by the fact that it was a fresh suit that just got ruined.
that he doesn't know any details about what's going on with the man in yellow. These statements about being management may be a clue that the man in yellow is in control of the monsters, or has some level of authority over them. In season 2, Martin told Boyd that the monsters are only the tip of the spear, implying that some other entity is in control of them, and I think the man in yellow is that entity. He may not be the big bad or final boss, but I think it's safe to say that at the very least, he's in some kind of management role, a higher level entity over the monsters, like Doug said.
Yep.
And he can come out in the daytime again, while they cannot. And again, the man in yellow must either be an omniscient being or he came from the future. And this would explain how he may be controlling the monsters and how the monsters, who have no pulse and behave like robots, were able to outsmart people and successfully stage 2 ambushes in season 3.
I wonder if they're actually connected. Like the monsters and the man in the yellow suit, are they like a gang together? I mean, we assume so, right? But I'm not sure. I mean, it's not a given, right? Uh, they could be separate and separate gangs, or I mean, it would make sense that they're his like underlings and they do his bidding. But if they actually sacrificed, and they might, I don't know if they would have some resentment towards the person um, that pretty much damned them for their life, even though they thought they were getting a different kind of benefit from the sacrifice, right?
For instance, they knew when the ambulance was coming. Randall pointed out that they deviated from their usual routine that night. Most of them were hiding at first instead of doing their usual thing, and then one monster lay in the street pretending to be injured to lure the EMTs outside. Omniscience, or time travel from the future, would also explain why the monsters knew that Boyd said, "You don't break me," even though he was in the middle of the woods in the daytime when he said it, back in the season 2 finale. The man in yellow would be able to transmit that information to the monsters if he's controlling them. Another key piece of information that Hughes gave in his interview with Tony is that he was asked to audition in person because
Sorry
while it
about
was
that.
only a small role with one scene in season 3, if the show got a season 4, the man in yellow was planned to be a, quote, much more significant character, unquote. Adding to that his statement on What Is Fromcast that his character will be on, quote, fairly regularly, unquote, we know for a fact now that the man in yellow will have a major presence in season 4 and play a pivotal role.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. I'm actually excited about to see um what kind of role he plays in season 4 and how often he's going to be on screen and like what that means for the townspeople. Right? Like, can he just run up into town and are they going to have to hide in underground again, or like can he just get to them? Like go, like it just seems like he's very powerful and there's not much hope for them. Um, it's going to be interesting to see uh, how they survive and if like how many people are gonna he's gonna take out. Right?
But what is the significance of his yellow suit? It's odd that it looks like it could be from the early 20th century when there is evidence that Fromville dates back to the colonial Puritan period at least. These cabins here look very old, with dirt floors inside and a wagon wheel laying on the ground nearby too. Also, in season 3, Jade had a vision of a Puritan man, and we found out that Miranda painted a vision of what appears to be a Puritan woman, along with other Puritan men. These are strong clues that Fromville dates back to at least the Puritan era, when I think the origin story likely occurred. So the man in yellow could have updated his wardrobe over time, along with the nightmare creatures who wear 50s and 60s outfits.
You know, I mentioned that earlier when we were watching Gazing for You or Gaze for You's video. Like the whole outfit thing is weird, right? Because you know it seems to have started back in the 1500s or whatever, and then these monsters have been in the town. Well, we assume the monsters have been in the town since those days. So you would, I don't know how they got the wardrobe update or what's going on there. Do they just, since they like to steal people's things, they maybe steal people's clothes and wear their clothes? I don't know.
Or it's possible that he just isn't from that era and he had a different role to play. But why is the suit yellow, though, which is a symbolically significant color throughout this series? I've discussed in other videos that the color yellow symbolizes hope in Western cultures. Boyd wears many, many yellow shirts, and he is the living embodiment of the town's hope. Ethan wears yellow in season 1 when he is at his most hopeful and innocent, and also in season 2 as well. And Fatima's favorite sweater was yellow, which is fitting because she was a beacon of hope and positivity until the Colony House Massacre happened in season 1.
I'm curious, what do folks think about the colors and like what they mean? Like how much do you think that really has to do with anything in a narrative? Um, I'm curious to see what people think. There are some people that are really deep in it, and I think there's a gentleman named Robert that's really deep into it. I have not paid much attention to it, so you know, share your knowledge. Let me know. Let me know how deep the colors thing go. Uh, do we think everybody wearing yellow? What does that mean? Is it a symbol for hope? Let me know.
That night, she gave her sweater away to Trudy, who immediately got murdered, and it was as if Fatima's hope was
R.I.P.
symbolically
Trudy.
murdered that night, along with her. Fatima was never the same again after the trauma of the massacre. So, then why would this evil character wear yellow? Look at how dirty his yellow suit is. I think that could symbolize the tarnished, sullied hope of the people trapped here. As I said earlier in Miranda's painting, the man in yellow looks younger in her painting with dark hair, and only half his suit looks dirty. The change in the state of his suit could symbolize the fact that he's become more and more corrupted over time, having committed an increasing number of evil acts.
That's
So the
interesting.
dirtiness of his suit represents the corruption of hope, the corruption of an entity that may have been good initially.
That's a cool thought. I don't know if he was ever good. Maybe he could have been. I don't know. But it's a cool thought to think that, the dirtier he got, that's a sign of corruption. I don't know what to make of that painting. I try not to think too deep into the paintings, but you never know.
In his interview with Tony, again, Doug Hughes shared a fascinating and thought provoking quote by Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, author of Frankenstein, about how villains become what they are because they have been corrupted by their life circumstances. The quote says, quote, "The story of villains is much more entertaining than the story of heroes, because monsters are not born, they are made. They do not emerge from the void or darkness by themselves, but they are shaped by circumstances, by the wounds of the world around them. They reflect the deepest of human pain, rejection, loneliness, misunderstanding. A hero is defined by his acts of bravery, but a villain is the result of a heart that was once pure and ended up corrupted. The
That's poetic.
monsters, in their tragedy, show us what could happen to us all if the world turned its back on us."
Mm,
This
cooking.
amazing quote could shed light on how the man in yellow and the people who turned into literal monsters on the show wound up the way that they are. That they didn't start out evil. No one is born evil. We are all born innocent, but we become a product of our upbringing, the society and culture in which we grow up, the people
Now I theorize that these townspeople were brought to a point of desperation, and that's why they followed through with that. Like there's no way that they just said, "Hey, you're gonna live forever." Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I think there was some kind of, you know, hopelessness um, that was brought upon them somehow, and they were manipulated into it.
around us, our life circumstances, etc. In the nature versus nurture debate, nurture seems to be the most influential factor in shaping ourselves. So while the man in yellow could be a demonic figure, it's possible that he started out as an innocent being like everybody else and became a monster over time. In Christianity, even Lucifer himself was a fallen angel, not born evil. And while the townspeople in the From origin story committed the most horrific act imaginable by sacrificing their children for immortality, they were all born as innocent people, especially if you believe in tabula rasa, the philosophical concept that everyone is born with a clean slate, without any innate mental content. We don't know anything about the monster's backstory as humans yet, and nothing can justify their unthinkable actions. However, it would be interesting to learn what kind of corrupting life circumstances drove them to commit the most heinous of deeds, as they murdered children for their own selfish gain.
And we've kind of seen like people being drawn to desperation and manipulated within the show, right? We saw with Sarah, you know, and I mean, some people theorize that Sarah was probably evil since before, but um, you know, bringing people to a point of desperation and providing some kind of solution, and then manipulating them into doing anything for that solution. It seems to be a theme that has gone on through the show, um, at least when it comes to Sarah, and also with Elgin, right? So maybe it's a similar kind of concept when it came to these parents.
Their own children in some cases. But getting back to the man in yellow, unlike the nightmare creatures, again, he is able to be outside in the daytime, so he could pose a unique threat to the Frombillions. Young Tabitha had a recurring nightmare in which she was out by the cabins and saw something that made her scream,
That's a
but
fun
she could never
screenshot.
remember what it was because she always woke up at that point. I think that may have been the man in yellow. It's possible that he
Could be.
can't even go into town.
Could be. Or is it a giant spider? Hashtag Spidergate.
When trying to change the story and save Jim, future Julie pleaded with him, saying, "You need to get back to town," as if this would keep him safe from the man in yellow. But the problem is that the residents still need to go back to the cabins to gather the rest of the crops there in the next season, and they'll be complacent enough to feel that they're safe in the daytime. So this could pose a problem coming up. Some potential inspiration for the Man in Yellow character could have come from the King in Yellow,
Oh, here's
a
another
character
reference to
from
the
a
King in
collection
Yellow.
of short stories by Robert Chambers. A similar character is also featured in H.P. Lovecraft's work, and he goes by the names Hoster, the King in Yellow, and the Unspeakable One. In Chambers'
Now we heard Gaze for you speak some a little bit about this, so we'll see what his points and her points differ at, or if they have similar points.
work, the King in Yellow is a powerful and mysterious non-human being, bringer of madness and doom. The stories also refer to a place called Carcosa, a mysterious, ancient, and possibly cursed city, so some fans have drawn parallels between Carcosa and Fromville.
Got it, go
When asked what the King in Yellow means to him in the interview with Tony, Doug Hughes said it means it's on his reading list and he's got a lot of prep work to do before next season. It's possible this could be a hint that the King in Yellow is indeed part of the inspiration for the Man in Yellow. Or it's just something that Doug Hughes thinks could be part of the inspiration. Because, again, the actors are not told any details as far as we know about what's going on here. On one of my recent live streams, I had a guest panelist on, Infinite Umbra, who joined me and did some great detective work on the spot, finding some strong parallels between The Man in Yellow and From in the 1970s.
All right, now I heard some of this just from her streams and stuff. She does very long streams, so go check her out if you like those late night long streams and you need some fun buddies for the late night. She definitely uh, has those long has those live streams. But she spoke a little bit on this, so I'm a little bit hip to this, and I really like this. I remember reading this book back in I think it was fifth or sixth grade. So it's pretty cool that it kind of touches up on something that I'm kind of familiar with.
Children's book, Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt. This is a mysterious evil character simply called the Man in the Yellow Suit, who seeks immortality and lives in a village called Tree Gap near a forest, where he wants to commercialize and sell water that brings immortality. He's trying to find it so that he can sell it to what he calls are people who deserve it, and he says it will be very expensive.
Hmm.
This could be interpreted to mean he could trick people into drinking it and it will cost them dearly, not just in terms of money, because ultimately it's a curse, not a blessing. The Tuck family in the book who drank from the stream regretted it and didn't want immortality anymore.
Yep.
In From, perhaps the Man in Yellow tricked the original.
I mean, being immortal, even though if it has its perks, like seeing everybody around you just go die, and then like everyone you've been, you can't die, but everybody else dies. It sounds like if you've been through a lot of loss, imagine that tenfold, right? That's just very like it's a lot of grieving tacked on to it, you know.
Townspeople into bargaining for immortality, and again, the cost was very expensive, much more than just money. In this case, it was their children's lives. It turned out there was even more to the cost as well, since it turned them into these nightmare creatures, forced to rip people apart, against their will. And they certainly deserved their fate. This immortality that turned out to be a curse, not a blessing. Also, in Tuck Everlasting, the Man in the Yellow Suit is able to find the Tuck family when he recognizes the tune from a music box that he had learned from his grandmother.
A music
A
box.
music box, remember, featured prominently in From Season 2, and
Yep.
Bacta recognized the cicada nursery rhyme connected to that music box because her grandmother had taught it to her. So these are more parallels to From. Infinite Umbra also theorized that the Lake of Tears could be a reference to the spring water that bestowed immortality in Tuck Everlasting, and perhaps the Lake of Tears could have even been what transformed the original townsfolk into nightmare creatures. If that's the case, Lake of Tears is certainly a fitting name. I predict that the Lake of Tears will be found somewhere out in the forest, much like the spring water in Tuck Everlasting was deep in that forest.
Now about the Lake of Tears, like he did mention that there's fairies at the Lake of Tears. That's interesting. When I'm saying he, I mean Ethan when he was talking about the story. So what's with the fairies at the Lake of Tears? Is that going to be a real thing?
It makes sense if Fromm has used children's literature as inspiration. There are also real children's books in existence called The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton and The Lake of Tears by Jennifer Rao. Also, in From, the fictitious book The Flight of the Chromonocle is prominently featured in the show through Ethan and his family. And Kotri notes that while there are no Bibles in town, there are books by Judy Blume, a popular children's author. Furthermore, eagle-eyed fans spotted a book of children's Bible stories in the clinic, despite the total lack of Bibles in town. So again, children's literature seems to be an influence on the show, and maybe the writers took some inspiration from the man in the yellow suit.
Yeah. On top of that, we've had uh, people speak about the references to like Wizard of Oz and uh, Alice in Wonderland. There's definitely a lot of borrowing from children's literature. Like, there's definitely influence, right?
Suit from Chuck Everlasting. In the credits for From, again, the character is also literally named simply the man in the yellow suit. Recall that from the first scene with the Matthews family, children's stories have been prominently featured, as Julie acted out a story for Ethan with his finger puppets. Ethan frequently compares events in the show to his Chromonocle story and gives insight into how things work based on his stories. So given all of the ubiquitous references to children's literature, both real and invented for the show, I don't think it would be a stretch of the imagination to surmise that the man in the yellow suit could be partly inspired by the character of the same name in Chuck Everlasting, who was also a villain. Now, the show wouldn't outright plagiarize a character from another author's work, whether it's this one or The King in Yellow, but looking at this potential source of inspiration can give us insight into the nature of From's Man in Yellow. He is likely to be a huckster, a con artist, like this character in Chuck Everlasting, which would
A huckster. I like that word. That's fun. Um, Definitely good points. I like that. I like the parallels. That's fun. It's fun stuff to point out.
make sense given the fact that Fromville is full of illusions, like the word on Julie's shirt signaled to us in season 1, episodes 1 and 2. Julie's shirt was definitely a clue planted at the start of the series.
That shirt's crazy, actually. Illusions with a third eye on a goat. It's kind of crazy.
People are often manipulated by various kinds of illusions in Fromville, like visions and voices,
I
things that
am
aren't
having
really
near
there.
delusions, having near
Some of these
illusions.
illusions might be originating from the man in yellow. For instance, Boyd was tricked into bringing the worms back to town, manipulated by the ballerina visions that hinted at how he should give the bloodworms to a monster, ultimately unleashing the cicada entity that threatened the lives of the entire town. Then there are these ghost entities. I think that the ghost Khatri here might be an entity that is there to manipulate Boyd, and Ghost Tom may be an entity to manipulate Jade.
Do y'all think the ghosts are manipulators? I feel like they're imaginary friends. Like that's my theory. Like I feel like um, they don't really know that much. It doesn't seem like they know much. They know what whoever unless they're like they could be playing dumb, right? But it seems like they know just as much as what the person they're talked to knows. And I don't know why Boyd and Jade in particular are the ones with imaginary friends, but my point was that the theory um, that these people uh, like they don't react to the imaginary friends like they react to like things other things they see. Like Jade is very cool and calm when talking to Ghost Tom, but whenever he runs into Christopher or has some kind of vision, he's he's very upset, right? So I don't know. I feel like these are just people that they have to share thoughts with or bounce ideas off of. Like just imagined, they're just imagining their old friends, the same ones that they used to bounce ideas off of before they passed away.
Ghost Abby was most definitely an entity bent on manipulating Boyd into giving up, trying to convince him to stay in the RV with her as the monsters were approaching, and then trying to talk him out of smashing the music box. The monsters themselves are illusions. They look like smiling, pleasant people who say whatever they can to trick people into letting their guard down until they transform into creatures and rip them apart.
They're so nice.
All the buildings are illusions. The school is really a clinic, the gas station is a bar, and the post office is the sheriff's station. Very little is as it seems here, and I think that is all part of the Man in Yellow's playbook. It's all about illusions. In order to see through the illusions of the place and find a way out, it's essential for Tabitha and Jade to open their third eye.
I'm curious about the design of this. Like, who designed it? Like, did they just find a shirt like this, or was it designed by somebody on the set? It'd be cool to get an answer to that, just out of curiosity. I mean, it's probably question number 55,000 in importance, but I think it's pretty cool looking.
Figuratively speaking, which is also displayed on the goat from Julie's shirt. They need to become enlightened, in other words, which in their case means remembering their origins, their past lives, and their mission. And they have just remembered their past lives, so now they have a fighting chance to complete their mission and save the children if they can figure out what saving the children means at this point. But the Man in Yellow will continue to pose a threat and throw obstacles in their way, such as the trauma and the grief of Jim's death, that will be a huge distraction for Tabitha. As Doug Hughes himself revealed, the Man in Yellow will have a major role in Season 4, so we'll definitely see more of him than that one brief scene in Season 3. His
Hmm.
presence could completely upend life in Fromville, changing the rules of the game so that people are no longer safe even in the daytime.
Very
Now, from
exciting.
the start, it seemed as if an evil force has been selecting certain people to exploit their weaknesses and cause harm, using them like chess pieces. And I think the Man in Yellow is that force. Sarah told Elgin in the season 3 finale that maybe they are the kind of people that this place wants.
Hmm.
People who just want to help. The Man in Yellow and or the Big Bad could be bringing people who want to help, but who have traits or weaknesses that can be exploited so they can be tricked into causing harm. Sarah seems traumatized and maybe even mentally ill in addition to that. When she was asked in season 1 about her ex, she shut down and just said, "It's better he's not here." She said that her brother Nathan saved her, and he was bringing her to Boston to live with him when they wound up in town. The way she shut down and said so little about her ex seemed like a trauma response, and since she said her brother saved her and was taking her to live with him, it's possible that her ex was abusive. This is pure conjecture, but she may have even killed her ex in self-defense.
Now, that's pretty crazy, and a lot of people do suspect that she has murdered before, like, and it's like second nature to her now, I guess. Like, uh, I don't know. I have more faith in Sarah. I don't, but that's a crazy theory, right? Like that she might have killed her ex, and her relationship with her brother's kind of weird. Like she was wearing a towel, hugging him, and talking about loving him so much in like a weird way. I don't know. Season 1 was weird.
She murdered Toby so skillfully that it seemed like it wasn't her first kill. Either way, the timing of her winding up here can't be a coincidence, in my opinion. It would make sense for the Man in Yellow to bring her there to exploit her trauma. Her trauma would make her an easy target for the voices to convince her to murder Toby, leave the clinic door open at night, and try to murder Ethan. Not many people would be susceptible to voices in their head telling them to commit murder, but a traumatized young woman who possibly just murdered an abusive boyfriend would be a prime candidate. Another prime candidate would be Elgin. He is a genuinely kind person who wants to help, just like Sarah.
Poor
And
Elgin.
the trait that the man in yellow could exploit here is his strong religious faith.
And his lack of bathing.
After he started seeing the kimono lady, he told Julie that his grandma taught him that angels may look scary, but he should fear not. He later told Boyd that he believed the kimono lady is an angel, pointing out that people in the Bible had to do things even when they didn't understand why at the time. It definitely seemed like Elgin was chosen to be here. He's one of a few characters who's had a seizure, which happened when he arrived, and he had a premonition dream with the boy in white in it on the way into town.
So what do the seizures mean? Right? Like it always draws me to like Julie had the seizures and she story walked. Like I put one and two together or whatever. And then but you have these other characters like, Ethan, Sarah, Elgin, they all had seizures and I'm not sure if they story walked. I mean Ethan said he saw um the drawings that why am I drawing a blank? Anyway, the drawings in the room, um, and whatnot. Sarah, when she had her seizure, she came back and she talked about what Boyd's wife had said. I mean, she didn't know it was from Boyd's wife, but she said that Mr. Fish and Loaves that he was right or whatever. It's all very interesting. Like, what did the seizures mean?
Town. As I said before, the boy in white may have been trying to send Elgin a warning in that dream. If he was chosen to be there, I would say it had to be by the man in yellow due to his religious faith, to manipulate him into believing the kimono lady and kidnapping Fatima to birth a nightmare creature. And I think that was the plan all along. The bus was brought to town at the same time when Boyd was on his trek in the woods that led to him getting the worms. The big bad seems to be omniscient, or, again, from the future. It heard Boyd yelling, "You don't break me," in the middle of the woods in Season 2, as the monsters later referenced that line. So the big bad, who I think is the man in yellow or the boss of the man in yellow, would know that Boyd was planning that trip to the woods, especially as he spoke about it at Abby's grave, with Cautry, and at the diner before he left. So I think the man in yellow brought Elgin to town in preparation for Boyd's infection with the worms, the passing of the worms to Smiley, and then the resurrection of Smiley. It was all an orchestrated mind game. Again, Boyd was even given hints on how to kill Smiley with the worms by the ballerina visions.
That's, I mean, it makes sense. That kind of looks like what happened with Smiley, right? She put the worms in he put the worms in his open wound or whatever. It's interesting. Um, you know, is this all orchestrated? Like, has Boyd been manipulated to do certain things? Were they trying to manipulate him to do things and he refused? I'm still wondering, like, Boyd has made choices, right? Like, was it falling into the manipulation or opposing the manipulation? I've always wondered that, like, especially the conversations that he had with the, the ghost of his wife, Abby, and whether or not that's an entity or if it was her, spirit. Definitely some interesting things to extract from that, right?
Big Bad, or Man in Yellow, wanted Boyd to get the worms, bring them to town, and consequently unleash the cicada entity which threatened everyone's lives. The cicada entity, or probably even the man in yellow himself, spoke to Sarah in her head at the end of Season 2 and said, "It's laughing at you for bringing it to town." So all along, it's clear to me that the plan was always to orchestrate events so that Boyd would get the worms, use them to kill a monster, Elgin would be there to help the kimono lady set up its rebirth, and the cicada entity, unleashed by Smiley's dead body, would capture 3 people's spirits and threaten the lives of everyone in town. It could have even led to everyone's deaths. If Boyd hadn't smashed the music box, I would venture to say that the whole town would have died, ripped apart in their sleep eventually,
I'm
except
sure.
for Fatima, who would have had to be left alive long enough to resurrect Smiley. But Elgin was a backup plan, basically. If Boyd defeated the cicada entity, then Elgin would be there to assist the kimono lady with Fatima's kidnapping. So, long story short, there is strong evidence to support the theory that Elgin was brought to town by the big bad, who I think is the man in yellow, to be manipulated.
Yep.
Another character who was probably brought there for purposes of manipulation by the big bad is Tilly, another person who just wanted to help.
Now Elgin and Tilly came in the same bus, right? And so did Marielle. And Marielle is good with, was she like a pediatric nurse or something? So I think they were all kind of tied to this whole plot to bring back Smiley, the rebirth of Smiley and the baby and all that stuff. Uh, it's interesting, right? They were brought in for a reason. They had a purpose. Tilly kind of seemed like she knew what her purpose was. I don't know. It was kind of odd how they, or maybe she was just ready to die, right? Because she had the cancer.
But was seemingly used as a pawn. She was already dying of cancer when she arrived, so she wasn't afraid to be around Fatima,
Yep.
even though she saw Fatima eating rotten vegetables and becoming increasingly dark while pregnant. Tilly constantly followed her around and tried to reassure her, a naturally nosy person with a strong urge to try and help and reassure people without a fear of dying. This made her an ideal pawn for this purpose. The way I see it, the big bad needed a victim to be in Fatima's orbit, getting too close to her all the time no matter how scary Fatima became. The creature inside her would inevitably drive her to murder, as it was
Okay.
hungry for blood and Fatima was resisting that craving. And once she committed murder, she was isolated and an easy target for Elgin to trick into coming with him to the root cellar. Also, Tilly kept trying to reassure Fatima that how she was feeling was normal, which might have kept her from feeling the need to tell others what she was going through. Another way of keeping her isolated. I don't think any of this was malicious on Tilly's part. She was just trying to help, and the big bad used her as an unwitting tool.
Poor Tilly.
Of course, we
Everybody
can't be
thought she was
sure if the
sus.
man in yellow is the big bad yet. He could just be working for the big bad, but I'm
Could be.
inclined to think that he is the main evil force in the show, while the boy in white is the force for good, or at least the force that's trying to help as best it can. We just don't have enough evidence yet to make a strong case for who the man in yellow is and what he has done, but this is what I've been able to piece together so far. He is still a brand new addition to the show, although he has apparently been working behind the scenes all along. At the very least, we have definite confirmation that he was the voice that spoke to Jim on the radio in season 1. And in an upcoming video, I'll get into who the potential identity of this man in yellow could be. But when it comes to the boy in white, there is a great deal more concrete information to analyze, because he has actually been present in scenes on camera from the beginning. And I'll dive into the boy in white's role in part 2 of this theory, which will tie everything together.
Oh, W cliffhanger.
Again, I believe the man in yellow and the boy in white are two opposing entities that are bringing residents to town, using them like chess pieces against each other. The man in yellow is bringing people to town to manipulate them in an effort to keep the cycle of death and terrorism going, while the boy in white is bringing people to town to try to help the people who are trapped and break the cycle. I'll deep dive into the boy in white's role in part 2 of this theory, examining what I believe to be the other entity engaging in this supernatural game of chess. And then in a third video after that, I'll examine the potential identity of the man in yellow and whether he could actually be an older version of a character we already know. Now, I want to know what you think. What kind of threat do you think the man in yellow will pose in season 4? What kind of entity do you think he is, and how much power does he hold? Do you think that this could operate like a game of chess, with two opposing forces using the residents like chess pieces? Or could there be more than two forces? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a subscribe. And until next time, keep on deep diving and let's see what we can uncover together.
I like that outro, right? She brought the questions back to the forefront.
Let me know down in the comments. And if you
She teased to the next few videos. I guess this is gonna be a four-part series on Man in Yellow and the Boy in White. Um, really well done. Appreciate you, Julie. It is great. Uh, let's all right. So I'm just kind of winging it so far. I mean, I didn't expect anybody to ever come and chat. This is just kind of me getting do doing things and like putting myself on the mic and trying to get used to this setup and see how it works. So I appreciate anybody that's checking this out and that's actually listening to any of this. But just know that this is my first time doing this, and I need to work on my energy and my mic presence. I know that, and I appreciate anyone that digs this because uh, yeah, it's it's a fun thing to do, and I've always wanna I've watched people do similar things, and I've always kind of been interested in doing it. So I'll do one more video, and then there's a watch party tonight uh, that I'll be attending with Jeremy Eisenfire. You guys should go check him out. Uh, but next video will be a video by somebody I've never seen their videos before, so this should be interesting. Gentleman, I don't know, a creator named BigBlueBackpack, predicting from season 4. So seems like he has a lot of views on this video, which is interesting. He might, you know,
career with great
he has
interest.
59K views
We're now
on
at the
this
end of
video, which is pretty cool. So oh wait,
Just when I think you couldn't
all right, here we
possibly
go.
be any dumber, you go and do something like this.
Good old
And
Dumb and Dumber.
totally redeem yourself!
While season 3 of From was airing, I got a sense from what people were saying online that fans were starting to get,
I love
let's say,
that was amazing. That's pretty hilarious. I like the Dumb and Dumber clip and how he felt about him. That was pretty good. This guy is good sense of humor.
antsy. There was a big stretch in the middle of the season where not much happened. A lot of people said they were giving up on the show, and that they thought the writers had no idea what they were doing. That this was going to be yet another show that introduced a bunch of mysteries that was going to end with no answers. Not me.
That the hate on oh my, like episode 6 through like 8, it was so OD, man. Like you gotta let them cook. Like let the things unfold. I understand. I guess they were slower. You wanted more. I don't, I honestly didn't feel the same way, but um, yeah, people were. I thought it was OD.
Me, though, I never lost faith. Nope, not even for a second. But
Not for
then
a second.
came that
Okay.
finale, and wow, just wow. Way to deliver on every promise. It didn't answer every question we had, obviously, because there's still more show left, but it gave us some major breakthroughs and proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that there is a plan here. Just in case you've never heard of the show and you're here just because you like listening to me talk, first of all, thanks for being here, but second, From is a show on MGM Plus about a small town that traps anyone who visits. You find your way there, and then when you try to leave, you magically end up right back in town again. The people unlucky enough to get stuck there try to figure out how to leave, survive the monsters that want to kill them, and figure out exactly what this place is. This show follows in the tradition of many shows before it as a mystery box show, where the main story is built around
I
a
love
big
this.
question that splinters out into a bunch of smaller questions, with everything eventually getting explained in the end. I've talked at length about all the many shows that tried and failed at this, and I think From has a solid chance of being the first show to really get it right.
All right. Obviously, he doesn't do just from content. You know, he had to introduce it. That was a great introduction. I like he has. I like his videos. Pretty good. Uh, seems like a younger gentleman, right? Now, people might debate in terms of doing it right, because there's a lot of people that feel that Lost did it right. I guess it's polarizing, but apparently he doesn't feel that Lost did it right. I would have to rewatch Lost at this point. Like, it's been so long. I don't remember being disappointed. I was just casual though. Wasn't deep diving. I was just binge watching it. So it would be nice to catch that again and see how I really feel about it and actually, dig into it like I've been digging into From, because this From experience has been awesome. Like, I really like this is the first time I've had this kind of relationship with a show in which we're diving deep into the stuff and really getting into all the theories and stuff and like interacting with the community. And it's a wonderful, unique experience. And like, it's kind of the off season now, and I kind of miss that camaraderie as because it's not as you know as plentiful, but we're still hanging out in the shadows, the true faithful.
We will watch your career with great interest.
We're now at the end of Season 3, out of 5, according to the creators. Things are starting to come together, but there's still a lot we don't know. Before Season 4 comes out, I want to take stock of every question the show has raised, and all the information we have so far, to see if I can guess where the story is going. Even though there's a lot we haven't been told yet, I think it's possible to at least suss out the shapes of the answers we all want.
Let's get it. The Big Blue Backpack.
We need to start by... Okay, I know how the show is going to end. See, remember Martin? Martin has a military tattoo. Martin was in the military.
Has a theory already.
Boyd was in the military. That means that Boyd is Martin. And all this is just a dream inside Martin/Boyd's head. Everything in town is just a representation of some kind of trauma that he faced while he was in the war. The monsters represent the enemy soldiers. The boy in white represents the innocent people that I assume he killed. The bugs under his skin represent the bug bites he got when bugs bit him out in the jungle. Mrs. Chen's pancakes represent... There are a lot of fan theories flying around about this show, and it's easy...
Oh, I gotta laugh at that. Yeah, you've heard these theories, right? And like that, actually, the theory is not horrible, right? Like, it's kind of interesting, the themes that were brought up there. But uh, yeah, I see that he's kind of making fun of like these the theories that we see out there. Is just everybody's theories, right? We all have crazy ideas.
Easy to let your imagination run wild waiting for the next episode. But we need to get a full picture of everything we already know before we can fit everything together. Let's do a rundown of what's been introduced so far. Like I said, the story takes place in a haunted magic town where people can't leave. You can find yourself there no matter where you started from. The main danger of living there is these monsters that look like humans that only come out at night, but can't enter any buildings as long as there's a talisman hanging inside. Quick list of main characters. There's the Matthews family, husband and wife Jim and Tabby, and their kids Julie and Ethan. There's Sheriff Boyd Stevens, the lead character. And there's arrogant software developer Jade, who showed up on the same day as the Matthews, and is far and away the best character in the whole show.
Do you have anything motorized? Like a scooter or something?
No.
Hey, this'll do. Thank you.
That's my...
He's just straight jacked her bike.
Only had Jade for a day and a half. But if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
As characters explore and investigate, things get more complicated, and more weird, mysterious things keep getting added. To name a few, half the cast has visions that only they can see. A girl named Sarah hears voices that tell her to kill people. Jade keeps seeing ghosts of people who probably used to live here, and this symbol keeps popping up. Tabitha has these zombie kids appear to her over and over, and they keep saying the word Ankui.
I love this backstory, right? Like, he's given us a recap. A lot of us faithful, we would, we're kind of like, oh, we know this stuff, but it's nice that he's introducing more people to the show, and hopefully, this video that has 59K views brought in, a few more fans to the fandom. Much love to that, right?
A few people have the ghosts of other characters who died come and talk to them. Jim gets phone calls from his and Tabby's infant son Thomas, who died before the show started.
It's me,
And a ton of
Thomas.
people have seen the Boy in White, a figure who seems to be the main force for good here against the monsters. In Season 1, Jim is trying harder than anyone to figure out how to get home. He wonders how all the houses have.
So 3 videos, all 3 have faith that the boy in white is the force of good that's trying to steer them in the right direction, right?
Electricity if the wires don't actually connect anywhere. He gets the town to build a radio tower to contact the outside, while Tabby digs a hole in their basement to find where the wires go. But it backfires during the Season 1 finale, when the radio tower just picks up some creepy monster guy's voice who tells Jim to stop asking questions, and Tabby digs down into an underground tunnel where the monsters sleep during the day. Meanwhile, Boyd took Sarah to go exploring the woods outside town to see what they could find. They run into a weird place full of spider webs and find a tree full of bottles tied to it. It's also one of the town's many faraway trees, which teleport you places when you go through the hole inside it. Boyd goes through it and teleports to inside a dungeon in a lighthouse. This leads to a whole pile of new stuff in Season 2. Boyd finds a guy named Martin chained up, who warns him of more dangerous things to come, and then puts worms in Boyd's skin. Boyd starts seeing this music box and ballerina everywhere. Something starts killing people in their sleep, and 3 characters end up in a coma after imaginary cicadas attack them. Boyd beats these monsters by putting the worms into the lead monster, aka Smiley, killing him, and then freeing the 3 comatose characters from their chains in a vision. Side note, Boyd had this whole plan of killing monsters with bullets coated in Smiley's bile, but then he used them, they did nothing, and it's never brought up again. Like,
Yeah, that was so weird, right? That was like a weird idea, and like it led to nothing. I don't even know if it was good. I don't know where they came up with that idea, but I was really disappointed that that autopsy didn't lead to more. Like, it should have led to something. Like, it led to 0 answers.
sure, okay, it didn't work. But there's no scene of Boyd acting disappointed that they didn't work. It feels unresolved. In a similar way, he says he wants to come up with a plan to catch a monster in Season 3, and then just doesn't. Both these plotlines just fizzle out and get dropped. Super
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, I think they got dropped. I don't know. Like when Donna told him it was stupid, I think he realized that it was stupid, and then he talked to Randall, and Randall gave him some of the answers that he was going to be looking for anyway. Um, I don't know if he's going to go back to trying to capture. Like things kind of went crazy right after that whole idea. It is kind of weird that they abandoned it, but I'm assuming that he just wrote it off as a bad idea.
One of the bigger pieces of the puzzle is Victor, who's lived there longer than anyone. Victor is our resident character who knows all the answers but won't reveal what information they know because of reasons. He never wants to talk
And
about
he
anything
forgets stuff.
important because it's either too upsetting or a traumatic memory that he blocked out.
You don't understand. You shouldn't be asking these questions.
I don't want to talk about that.
No, I should know! Victor! I should know! Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
When he was a kid, the monsters killed everyone in town except him,
Bro's funny.
including his mom Miranda and his sister Eloise. He only survived because his mother hid him. She apparently had visions of the children just like Tabby's been having, and she tried and failed to save them. One of the residents who died around this time was a man named Christopher, who had a puppet named Jasper, and who started seeing visions of things too. He was obsessed with the same symbol Jay keeps seeing. It's unclear how he fits into things, but Victor seems to think he was important somehow. Tabby goes to the lighthouse to try and save the children, where the boy in white pushes her out a window, and then she wakes up out in the world, in Camden, Maine, the town where Victor was born. She goes to find Victor's
Season 3,
father,
episode
Henry.
1.
Tabby learns more and more about how she and Miranda had a connection of some kind. Both of them had dreams of the town before they got there, and both of them made the exact same bracelet for their husbands. Miranda also made a replica of the bottle tree, and Tabby goes to see it, but she and Henry end up back in town before she can. A major plotline in Season 3 focuses on Boyd's son Ellis and his wife Fatima. Fatima gets pregnant, but it becomes clear that she's not having a normal baby when she starts craving rotten vegetables and human flesh.
Yummy.
Meanwhile, a character named Elgin seems to have a special connection to the town. He had a dream about it before he got there. He starts seeing visions of a zombie woman in a kimono, who tells him Fatima's baby is super important. So he kidnaps Fatima to make sure she gives birth to whatever monster is inside of her. That's
The story sounds so crazy, right? Like just in this like short, like however long description, right? It's what, like 5 minutes so far, where he's gone through the whole series, like the first, you know, 2.5 seasons, and like the story sounds ridiculous. And that's, but we love it so much. Like I love it so much. I'm so stuck on this show.
Pretty much every big question introduced during the first 3 seasons. Questions pile up without a lot of answers. But the season 3 finale was a massive breakthrough. Let's go through every answer we got in that episode alone. Tabitha and Jade finally figure out what the deal is with the kids and Ankui. It starts with the bottle tree. They figure out that the numbers in the bottles on the tree are music notes that spell out a lullaby. Now here's the big lore drop. That lullaby is a song Jade and Tabby used to sing to the kids. They are reincarnations of people who lived in the town. Tabitha used to be Miranda, and Jade used to be Christopher. And they've reincarnated over and over and come back to the town over and over to save the spirits of their dead/cursed kids.
Reincarnated.
Ankui apparently translates to remember. Tabby explains that all the monsters were once people who made a deal with whatever entity controls the town to trade their children for immortality.
Yes, and shout out to Real Enigma. She did lay an egg, right? It wasn't a baby; it was an egg.
She doesn't get into details, but it seems like the two of them were part of that group and were the lone dissenters. Also, Fatima gives birth, and her baby turns out to be Smiley, reborn. Finally, Jim has an encounter with someone new. This guy, who we're calling the Man in Yellow.
Your wife shouldn't have done
Yellow
that
man in
hole,
yellow,
Jim.
man in yellow, man in yellow.
Your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, Jim.
Not the same
The
voice.
previous episode, we're introduced to the idea that Julie can time travel in some form. When Boyd was at the lighthouse, an unknown person threw him a rope, and it turned out that was Julie. She can time travel, but anything she does in the past has already happened, and she can't change anything. Anyway, in this final scene here, a version of Julie from the future shows up to try and save Jim from what's about to happen. But she can't change what's coming,
I'm really
and the
intrigued
Man in
by
Yellow
future Julie.
rips Jim's throat out as the episode ends.
I like how he covers the gory scenes with the que sera, sera. That's hilarious. Very intrigued by this future Julie. Look at that face, by the way. Very interested to see like how far along the line this Julie is, and like, they gave her the haircut on purpose, but she has the scratches on her face. Is the future? How much further from the future is she, and like, how bad is it? Right? How much longer does this go on for? Because she's obviously still in from, right? Is this like days in the future, or maybe she cuts her hair out of grief? I don't know.
The Man in Yellow is called that because he's got a yellow jacket on. But, did you catch this? In the first season, Ethan has a yellow jacket on. Ethan is the Man in Yellow. He's the head of a government project that's running an experiment with the town. By using time travel...
I like how he spits out these theories. He's hilarious. This guy is funny.
Like I said, From is a mystery box show. And when it comes to mysteries and reveals in mystery box shows, they have to follow certain rules.
Jesus Christ, you don't know the rules?
I've been at this a long time, and I've noticed clear patterns that mystery box shows follow when it comes to setting up and paying off mysteries. It's only by understanding these rules that you can make any accurate predictions about the story. Here's the first rule. You're not supposed to solve a mystery box mystery ahead of time. Well, you're supposed to try, but you're not supposed to be able to figure out the answer before the show tells you.
Tell me you figure it out.
Well, I did. And the answer is 12.
This isn't like a traditional whodunit. In a murder mystery, the clues are sprinkled throughout the story so that the audience can solve it before the main character tells them. Mystery box shows don't do that. They will always withhold critical information so that it's impossible for the online hive mind to spoil the ending beforehand. I'm sure there are a bunch of theories out there that involve going through the show frame by frame and picking out obscure specific details that nobody noticed the first time around. But that kind of approach won't solve a show. The writers know people do that. They know that any clue they slip in will be found, so they won't include anything that's actually helpful towards predicting the ending. All season, I saw post after post of people trying to figure out what Ankui means by trying to break down the etymology and finding similar words, but that was never going to work. Even now that we know it means remember, there's still no way we could have reverse engineered that meaning without the writers telling us. Because
we couldn't have reversed it anyway. Like when in Sci-Fi Vision's interview, she asked the question that I requested, thanks to her, but I asked, what does Ankui, like, where does Ankui come from? And he said he just made it up. He also said he made up Cromwell, which is interesting. Some people were looking into the etymology of that also, which is, I think this is a fascinating point. I love the deep dives and stuff. I love that we get into the weeds. I love that. But what he's saying is true. And like what some people have a problem with is um, that that's not the case. That that it can't be solved. But like they're writing it as they go along. They have an outline, but they made it clear that they're writing it as it goes along. If we get it right, they're just gonna move. Yeah, I just feel like they're just gonna change it up a little bit. Um, because the whole point is to keep us guessing until the end, have the big reveal, and hopefully it pays off. A lot of times people are, you know, let down by endings. Some people were let down by the ending of season three, right? But so far I've really enjoyed everything.
Because if we had, it would have taken the punch out of the season finale lore drop. The only way to actually guess answers ahead of time is to look at things from a Doyleist point of view. What answers would make the most narrative sense and be the most narratively satisfying? That's what these rules are meant to uncover. Here's another rule. Your first guess is always going to be wrong. It's the writer.
Hey, I got someone in the chat. What's up, Toonie? I'm reacting to these videos about the show, a show that I'm obsessed with, named From. Um, this is my first live doing this, so I'm trying to get used to the setup and how it works and all this good stuff.
Writer's job to surprise you. If the reveal is exactly what you expected, that's bad writing. For example, here's a bit of a softball for my first prediction. The town is not a government experiment of some kind, because that would be really boring and underwhelming. This was probably one of the first theories that 99% of people had when they started watching. The explanation of what's going on will be supernatural. Maybe the government on the outside knows the town exists, but they weren't involved in creating it, similar to the Upside Down in Stranger Things. In a similar vein, I'm confident in saying that there is no mole. There's no character in town who's in on it. Because
yes, I totally agree with that. Like I said that in the previous wait, it was the first video that I reacted to when they said that the potential mole was Clara, and I don't think they need a mole. I don't think there is a mole. I don't even know if that's really where they're headed for. And just like the government conspiracy theory, there's some theories that they make sense and they're smart and put together, but would make terrible shows. Like it would not be interesting in a TV show.
Already spent long enough with Jim and Randall wondering if that was the case. Next rule. With any fictional mystery, as soon as a character shares a theory out loud, that theory is dead. Because it would be super lame to have a character randomly guess the right answer ahead of time. As a show like this goes on, it builds more and more hype about eventual answers. So the final reveal needs to be big enough to match that hype. From has already escalated so much in 3 seasons that these answers are going to be big. If we look to shows like Lost, Dark, and Manifest, where From is pulling inspiration, all of them had lore that eventually built up to cosmic clashes between the forces of good and evil. I think From will be similar. Good versus evil.
Good versus evil. He's about to say the boy in white versus the man in yellow, right? Good versus evil. Oh, good looks, Toonie. Appreciate it, man. Like I said, I'm a rookie to this. I know you've been doing it for a little bit, and it's just some kind of I got to get used to this. Like looking at one screen and the other, getting my mic presence right. Making sure the presentation looks all right. I think I did a pretty good job with designing this from scratch, like in OBS, and like I created a thumbnail. I think it looks good, but my daughter co-signed it, right? She thought it looked good.
The boy in white versus the man in yellow. Here's my next prediction. The man in yellow is going to be the big bad on screen for the rest of the show. But he's not all-knowing. He's not really the final boss.
Oh, I like that.
He's only a representative of some vaguely defined force of evil that will be described but never shown, because it doesn't have a physical form.
Okay.
Same with the boy in white. He's an avatar for the forces of good, whatever that actually ends up meaning. With a story like this, there's a limit to how far you can go with questions and answers. You eventually get to the point where you're asking, who created these supernatural forces of good and evil? What's the divine force that set all this in motion? And there's really no way to answer that in a satisfying way. It's the same as in the real world asking, if God created the world, who created God?
Every question I answer will
True.
simply lead to another question.
As long as we learn how FROMville was created, for what purpose, and by whom, the answers will probably stop there.
That's definitely a good point, right? Like there has to be, like can't keep asking questions on top of the questions. There certain things we're gonna have to just accept, right?
No need to get into the weeds about why evil exists. I keep saying that the story is going somewhere, that we will be getting answers, but we have to be realistic about what that looks like. I want to do some managing of expectations. Even if we are getting answers, that doesn't mean that every teeny tiny question is getting a specific explanation. Like, we probably won't be told how faraway trees were created, because they're just a part of how the town works. Not every
Wormhole
supernatural element
technology,
needs a
of course.
backstory. They can just be a thing that exists. We also probably won't be told why the monsters left Randall alive when they captured him. The
Why
show
won't be?
basically already told us it was to mess with Boyd's head, and have Randall around as a living reminder of his weakness.
Why'd they leave him alive? Why not just kill him?
When the sun's up, they want us to remember what's coming at night.
Even though that's not 100% confirmed, we don't.
In a way that the show does that, right? They just give us the answers instead of, but it's like through the conversation, and you think that the character's just analyzing the situation and taking a guess, but one can assume that it's the actual answer, that they're giving us the answer through that dialogue.
We don't need them to over-explain it. Also, we're never going to see the music box, ballerina, and Locust killing people in their sleep again. The show only told us this very briefly, but all of this happened as a result of one specific creature that Boyd released when he met with Martin.
It's laughing at you.
What?
For bringing it back to town. For setting it free.
The Season 2 monster, as I like to think of it, is dead and gone, and all the stuff it did during Season 2 is over and done with. So don't be surprised when the show ends and it feels like the ballerina never got explained. Because
Is it though? Like, because we see that Randall is having the visions. They're still dealing. Maybe that's just the trauma of what they went through. But could it be that the monster is not dead? Maybe he was weakened, or I don't know. It's kind of it's really hard to analyze that, right? Like, there's still signs of that monster.
it did, they just never put it into words. I'm going to keep comparing it to Lost and Manifest, because all three shows feel very similar in this way. Both of those shows gave pretty sophisticated answers to their main mysteries, but because those finales didn't explicitly state everything, people didn't understand them. If you want to understand what happened in the show by the end, you'll need to do some reading in between the lines and make some assumptions. Like, I saw a concerning amount of people wondering if this was Julie from the future or not. And it's like, yes, obviously yes. How is that even a question? She has a different hairstyle, she talks about stopping a bad thing before it happens, and we just saw Julie figure out how to time travel 20 minutes ago. Do you really need her to say, I'm Julie from the future? No. Trust yourself enough to figure out what the show is telling you. Whenever we do get our big final explanation, there will be pieces of answers that are implied but not stated. For example, next prediction. All the ghosts of dead characters, they're being sent by the forces of evil to manipulate people. They're not really the people who died.
Okay.
I don't think the show is ever going to say this.
That's kind of what Julie was saying in the previous, and I'm not sure if I agree 100%, but it could be. Like I said, I think these guys are imaginary friends as opposed to like the ghost of Abby, right? That he displayed. I think they're different kinds, but it makes sense if they're trying to manipulate them in certain ways, right? It's hard to tell by the conversations that they have.
It'll just be something that's obvious and implied once we get more info. Heck, it's basically implied even now. If you look at all the conversations with ghosts that have happened, a bunch of them involve the ghosts telling people not to investigate, not to try and do risky things that might lead to a breakthrough, even if it would be an in-character thing to say. Look at Father Kotri in the season finale.
You know there's no coming back from this, right? You said that you weren't gonna let this place break you. If you do this, this place is one.
Speaking of people who have died, Jade said something really interesting in the finale that's easy to lose track of between all the other lore drops.
Again, I don't know. Think that if Boyd didn't do that, then what would have changed? Like she still had the baby. Smiley was still reborn. I don't know. I don't know if it's manipulation. I don't know if I don't know. I gotta think more about that. My first instinct is that they're not manipulating, and it's more like him, trying to get through this thought, his emotions, like the angel and the devil on your shoulders, right? Like him bouncing off his ideas, and Father Cautry's always been that kind of the yin to his yang, even before he passed and the monsters killed him.
And our thoughts, our memories, our souls, if you believe in that sort of thing, they're made of energy. And that energy, maybe here, that energy, I don't know, maybe it lingers.
The way this line was presented set off some alarm bells for me. Generally, like I said, when a character in the story shares a working theory, that theory is wrong. But this is different. When a character intuits an explanation for something that feels out of left field, but they act weirdly confident about it, those theories are usually right. I've seen this before, again, with Manifest and Lost. A bunch of major explanations in both of those.
I never saw Manifest. I don't know if anybody who watched this video or has seen Manifest. I guess I'm gonna have to look into that. I never heard of Manifest. I did watch Lost, but I wonder what Manifest is about. I mean, I love these kind of mysteries. Um, I just love mysteries, period. Uh, so that's interesting. But he's making some awesome points. I really like this video.
Shows were given like this, and because it was never confirmed that they were right, people didn't know that they were explanations.
We're just a bunch of random people. Some good, some bad.
A statistical sample for a divine experiment.
If Jade is right that the town traps the souls of people who die here somehow, then these ghosts really are the spirits of the people they represent, only they're being puppeteered by the forces of evil. The whole time I was watching the show, I kept getting this feeling that a lot of the characters who died shouldn't have died. What I mean is that they died before they could finish whatever story arcs the show set up for them. There's Tilly, who in hindsight was obviously a red herring who acted weird so that we would theorize about her, but still, her getting stabbed by Fatima was pretty anticlimactic. And as he died, Father Cautry literally said, "It doesn't end like this." I just get the feeling that we haven't fully seen the last of a lot of dead characters. Their spirits will be back at some point to factor into the final battle. Which brings me to my first big swing. Every prediction I've made so far has been pretty vague and safe, but let me call my shot here.
Let's go. Let's see.
Jim isn't gone.
Okay.
Note my choice of words. I'm tempted to say that he isn't dead. A main character getting killed in the last scene of a season finale is giving me major Jon Snow vibes. And there's reason to think it's a fake out.
Jon Snow vibes.
But I do think he really died here. However, he's too important of a character to just disappear completely. What I actually think will happen is that a big chunk of season 4 will follow Jim's spirit, as we're shown what happens to souls in this place after they die.
I like that. That's pretty cool. I was thinking that he was going to say that maybe Jim is going to be Tabitha's ghost friend, just like, Boyd has his, Father Cautry has his ghost friend, and Jade has his ghost friend with bartender Tom. And, it would make sense if Jim was Tabitha's ghost friend, just because he was more like the yin to her yang. She always kind of, was the what if this, what if that, with Tabitha's let's do this, let's do that kind of feeling.
Julie and all the other living characters will think of him as dead, which is why Julie comes back to try and save him. But meanwhile, his ghost will look on, wishing he could return to his family, and doing everything he can to help them from this side of the veil. Side note, you know who totally isn't dead though? Eloise. I'm not the first person to think of this, but when Victor brings his dad to her grave, he goes out of his way to say that he didn't actually find her body, just bits and pieces. We know Miranda died because she reincarnated into Tabby, but Eloise is totally fair game to show up alive somewhere down the road. I want to talk more about the season 3 finale. I'm so excited about that episode, not just because it was really cool and gave us answers, but also because it knew exactly how much to reveal and how much to hold back. Every answer we got in this episode answered a big question, but it also led to another question that's more specific. So we get a progression, while still having what feels like the same amount of mystery to be solved.
Yeah.
What is the evil force pulling strings in town leads to who is the man in yellow? What's going on with Fatima's baby leads to how did Smiley come out of her? Why do Jade and Tabby keep having visions leads to how and why do they keep reincarnating? What are the monsters leads to Why did they sacrifice their kids for immortality? And who did they make that deal with? The episode ended as Tabby and Jade were explaining what they remembered, so we got a brief explanation lacking in a lot of details. These new questions won't be answered in Season 4, Episode 1, of course. We still have 2 seasons of show to fill, but these are the questions that will drive Season 4. We can't have Jade and Tabby info-dumping everything right away, so what I assume will happen is that in the season premiere, we'll find out that they only remembered a tiny piece of their past lives. Throughout the season, they'll remember more and more, so that we'll get a continuous drip feed of new information. Here's my next big swing. FROMville is ancient, thousands of years old, and it used to be a paradise before it was corrupted somehow. Whatever the monsters did to sacrifice the children ruined everything and allowed evil to take root here. It's like I said earlier, these answers have to feel big, and a reveal like that would go a long way.
I like that theory. I don't know if I've heard that one, or maybe I don't know. I've heard a lot of theories, but that one feels, it's like, different,
One more solid prediction. Boyd's gonna figure out how to capture and or kill the monsters this season. They kept making such a big deal out of him doing this that it has to pay off soon. Plus, making the monsters kill.
So he thinks that Boyd is going to actually follow through, while I think that maybe Boyd thought, was talked out of it by Donna, like when she said it was dumb. Or maybe he just needs a better idea of how to do it. The only problem is now we know that if you kill a monster, they're going to be reborn, and it's pointless, right? So you kind of have to capture a monster and find out how they operate. I don't know. I don't know what the purpose is anymore. Like, do you need to capture a monster? Like, I think the way to stop them is by stopping Man in Yellow and finding. How do they do that, right?
Killable changes the stakes and creates a new dynamic for the end of the show. It's still too early to make broad, accurate predictions about the ending of the story, but I can make some guesses about what kinds of answers we could get in Season 4. So to end things off, my final predictions are that Julie is the key to everything. Remember that part in the second episode when the monster said,
Julie,
Hey, what are you doing?
don't you recognize me?
That's the smoking gun. The monster recognized Julie because Julie is the monster. The monster is Martin, and Julie is Martin. By using time travel... No, that's not my actual prediction. Well, actually, here's where I think...
Nah, this dude's funny theories are hilarious. I like how he... Bro got me laughing. This is a W video.
Season 4 is going. We're going to get a lot more information about things happening in the town in the distant past. Jade and Tabby will remember parts of their past lives in bits and pieces. We'll find out that they reincarnated a lot of times. Like, a lot. To supplement this, Julie will do more time traveling and actually visit some events that have been described or hinted at. Maybe she'll even meet the boy who asked if she recognized him and get to know him before he became a monster. And while all that's happening, Jim will be fighting to return to the land of the living. In the process, interacting with all kinds of people who died here, giving him more information on what happened to them. This will build to an understanding of just how old the town is, and how it used to be a great place before the Man in Yellow and the forces of evil ruined it. And the Boy in White is trying to restore it to its former glory, or at least put it to rest. I don't think his goals really align with the human characters that much. He's probably ready to cause a lot of collateral damage for some divine greater good. Along the way, Boyd and the others will finally figure out how to kill the monsters for good, giving them a way to fight back and setting the stage for a final confrontation in Season 5. I know that doesn't really offer up a lot of specific possible answers, but I don't want to overpromise. I'd rather be right in small ways than wrong in big ways. Anyway, if the writer...
I'm curious, like, are they going to find a way to get rid of a monster for good? I don't know. They were promised immortality, unless that way is by, getting the big head honcho. Like, I don't know. I don't know if capturing them and doing science experiments is going to lead to anything.
Writers are doing their jobs right, I shouldn't be able to predict the answers. Like I said, the whole fun of mystery box stories is to be surprised with explanations you never expected. But I feel pretty good about my predictions for the general shape of the next season. I can't wait to see if I'm right about Season 4, when it comes out in 2026.
Sadness.
It's gonna be a long wait.
Sadness.
If you need something to fill the void in that time, check out the other videos on my channel. I talk a lot about other similar shows that you might like. And when Season 4 does come out, I'll be ready to make another video checking back on these predictions and piecing together what could happen in the series finale. See you then.
I can't see it. I don't understand this. I'm trying to show you. I can't see it.
okay, buddy. No. It's all
That's
right.
us.
Hey, come on. Hey, let's do it. I got it. Yeah, I got it. No.
Shout out to Big Blue Backpack. That was a very dope video. Really like your sense of humor. Definitely a fan of your content. It's cool. Doesn't look like you're that deep in with the From, like you don't do like video after video of From like the other creators, but you know, definitely when we post about From, I'm gonna check that out. And thanks for the recommendation when it comes to Manifest. I'm definitely gonna add that to the list of potential things to watch. Um, with that being said, it's 8:45 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to call it. Thank you. If anybody watches this, I don't know. I don't know, but this is my first time doing anything of the sorts, and I appreciate if anybody checks this out. If anybody likes, subscribes, you know, just shares anything, tell me that I did a terrible job or tell me that I did all right. I appreciate any kind of feedback, any kind of love. Um, much love to everybody. I'm gonna end it here. Go check out. I have the links to the videos that I went over today. Go check it out. Let me know if this is something I should keep doing. If I should be doing something else. Peace out, y'all.